we're very happy to have you.
I am stoked to be here with you guys as well, and thank you so much for considering me.
Before we dive into the industry of broadcasting and how one gets started, do you mind giving us a professional summary of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So today I am a sports reporter for MSG Networks in New York City. I have been with them for a little over almost 2.5 years now at this point. I also work with Yahoo Sports in the city as well. And that's my current, I guess those are my two more or less current roles. Prior to that, I did a little bit of college football for a network out of Florida. And I worked with the Tampa Bay Lightning for a few years, which is obviously how I met you, Isabella. And prior to that, it's crazy because I haven't done one of these in a while where you're like, I used to not have as many. Now I'm like, oh my God, no, wait. And then I also did this thing with San Diego. So in San Diego, where I started my career, I worked for the San Diego Union Tribune right out of college and was a basically hybrid between a traditional writer for the newspaper and their website. Essentially, actually, I contributed more to the website. And I also did on-camera work. So that was my first job out of school. And it's been, I just turned 30, so it's been about 9 years of a career, so just for some perspective. But yeah, now where I am today, I cover hockey and a little bit of football and soccer, MLS, Major League Soccer, out of New York City.
So building off of that great experience, when you were getting started, would you recommend any sort of higher education, like a specific major that someone should select if they want to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a traditional journalism major is what most people that want to be broadcasting, have a career in broadcasting, would probably end up going to college wanting to pursue. But, I do think there's a lot of different majors that you can have. And if you are going the route of going to college, which, I never say never. I'm sure there are people that have not gone that route and that have found success in this industry because it is so much about your connections and who you know and things like that. But you also have to be good at what you do, and you also have to have reps. And it's so much networking and who you know, like I mentioned. And if you're going to school for something, chances are you're being put around other people that are pursuing similar degrees and also maybe have some connections and experience. And it just kind of allows you to have a platform where you can get practice and reps and learn. And I think that's the biggest thing. So I do recommend, going to school for this, just because I think it helps to open some doors for you and maybe makes you feel a little bit more comfortable and confident when the time comes that, you're looking for your first and second job out of school.
And then while you were in school, were there any classes or extracurricular activities that stood out to you as particularly valuable that you would recommend to someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I get this question a lot because I think a lot of kids go to school and think, or they watch on television and they think like, oh wow, like I want to be a sportscaster or a news anchor or a weather person or whatever it is. And they don't really know like the steps that you take. And I think a lot of it gets lost in this like fantasy that it's like you graduate and like you're on camera. And there is some truth to that. Like you could go, but the road to doing that is a lot longer than just you graduate and you start in New York City or something. So when I was in college, I went to school for journalism, like I mentioned, and we had a school newspaper, which I went to Loyola in New Orleans, Loyola University, and it was an incredible just place to go to school in general. That's a whole nother, that's off topic a little bit, but like just in general to just get a college experience and to experience another place if you're lucky enough to do that and go somewhere else. And if not, even just locally to just be on your own a little bit more and to have a little bit more responsibility. And I think that it's so beneficial, obviously. But I went to school in New Orleans and we had a really, really well-known school newspaper, which we still have to this day. And it wins all these awards. I mean, it's an incredible newspaper. So I knew right away that that was something I wanted to be a part of. I wasn't really sure in which capacity I was going to be a part of it, because at the time it was just a print newspaper. They were kind of going into like web as well, but their online presence wasn't super strong. I think I joined my sophomore year and I was like a sports writer for the newspaper. And then I had this idea in my classes, like, why don't I start doing like video packages, like sports stories covering like, the teams around the school and different storylines and things like that. And so I just started to create these packages basically. And I would have a coworker from the Maroon shoot the video for me, and I would like buy him dinner. And that was kind of like our exchange. And we'd make these packages, and it was actually like, it wasn't for class. It was just to kind of like, I don't know. I actually didn't even really know where it was going to go. I just liked to do them. And because I was working for the Maroon, I was able to put them on our Maroon website. And so now all of a sudden they have a platform to live. And we kind of created then in this strange way, like a new element to the website that, and like I said, like that was back in, I started college in 2008. I graduated in 2012. So like you're really diving into that medium of like digital reporting, like online type of reporting, web reporters, that kind of stuff. So it was kind of new. You hadn't seen a lot of that before. And so that was great practice for me. And it kind of led to, like I said, this new position with the Maroon. From there, when I was a senior as well, I got an internship at a news station, like a local news station. And it was a lot of work. I used to do the 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. shift. And then I'd go to class after, and I'd have like a normal student life, and you're trying to you have to make a lot of sacrifices. But I will say, like, I almost didn't even notice it in real time, because I just loved it. And like, you feel like an adult. You're going to this really cool news station, and you have your responsibilities, and you see the people that you want to, that you look up to and that you hope to be like one day having success, and you see the path with internships and, even like your first jobs and stuff out of school. Like, I think seeing where you can go is huge, because like, while some people might think, like I said, that it's very easy to get into this career, other people, I think when you actually get into it, it's daunting, because there is a journey, like with most fields, right? Like when you're climbing. But I think having that visual, like, okay, I see this person in this role that I want to be in. These are the steps I need to take to get there. Just really cool to be around such excellent people, like just people who are so excellent at their craft. For me was just like, you're like a sponge. So I found going the route of, thinking outside the box a little bit, being creative with just trying to do, like I said, the sports stories. That was something no one had done yet at my school. Now it's crazy, because you flash forward and it's been like 10 years and they have this incredibly beautiful news studio. They have a whole show. They all, like, students rotate doing different things. And like, it's amazing what's evolved there, which is incredible. And I don't know if I would have taken the same initiative then if I had all of that at my fingertips. So I think that it was kind of interesting the way it all worked out, but it was really, really important to do that stuff early on. I definitely think that laid a foundation for me as a journalist and just like starting my career.
I wanted to highlight the amazing initiative you took in those moments to say, this is something I really value, something I want to do. That alone, as a skill, I think in whatever career path somebody chooses, it's important to know that even though it doesn't exist, you can make it exist. It sounds obvious in a nutshell, but it's really not, because sometimes people need to be reminded that they have permission to think outside of the box, and they have permission to add something more.
And I want to build off of that and just say, not just in this space, but in any space, really, I want to remind our listeners that you don't have to be asked to do something. You can find something, identify a space that might be missing for yourself, and then move into it. No teacher has to give you the assignment. You do not have to receive homework. It doesn't have to be a project for you to work on something. just jump in.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I think I knew that like I needed a resume tape, like I needed a reel. And I'm trying to, it's so long ago now, but I think I started doing them when I was a sophomore, I think either sophomore or junior year, maybe junior year. And yeah, it was just like a jumping off point for me. And they're horrible. They're actually, I think they're still on YouTube, which, I mean, they're horrible. Like, and you're bad when you start. That's natural. I mean, I think I thought they were good at the time. And now I look back and I'm like, God, how do I get this off of YouTube? Even stuff I do sometimes, I'm like, oh my goodness, that wasn't the way I wanted to do it. Or that was, I wish I would have asked this differently. But that's all part of the process, the not to, go off on a different tangent here, but the self-critiquing, is really important in our business. And it's also a very fine line between being like self-critical and criticizing. So you have to find that balance that works for you. And I know for most people in our industry, which is so funny because we're in this industry where we literally speak on camera, and like, but a lot of friends I have in the business hate watching themselves back, me included. Like, I hate it. Like, I sit there like, oh God, like, oh, why did I, and sometimes after I'm like, okay, that was good. That was actually good. That sounded good. But then there's other times that I'm like, oh gosh, embarrassing, but you have to do that because it helps you, when you're trying to figure out how you want to come across on camera, or the way you asked a question, it's really valuable for things like that. How could I have made the subject shine more? Because at the end of the day, that's the job. It's not for me to like be the person that shines. It's for the person that story we're telling.
1,000,000% agree with that. And I think that in any line of work, it's important to not beat ourselves down, but more lift ourselves up and say, okay, well, next time I'm going to ask this differently. And then knowing that you're continuing to grow. On-campus jobs and internships will only help you grow. Mm-hmm. How does somebody go about that without any prior experience?
So I didn't have any experience when I got the internship, in fact, they didn't even call it an internship. It was a actual paid position at this news station that I worked at. I went to a networking night at my university, and I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this. Use the resources that are available to you. If you're going to school for journalism, speak to your professors who have most likely been journalists or been at least in the field for their careers. Go to networking nights, find out who the local stations are in the area. I mean, I was in Tampa obviously I grew up in Tampa. I knew the stations, like before I was even, I think in high school, I knew all of the stations. And that's just more because you watch television and you watch the news. Same at Loyola in New Orleans. I knew all of the stations. I knew who had internships. I knew what kind of opportunities there were. And I also knew that they were willing to work with college students. I had just asked reporters, hey, I'm a student at Loyola. I'm really interested in your field. Do you mind if I just shadow you? And I remember one sports reporter picked me up on like a Friday afternoon, and we drove like 2 hours into Louisiana to cover high school football. But if you don't ask, you never are going to have that opportunity, because I mean, this sports reporter is not going to find me on Twitter. Like, I had to find him and find a way to make the connection happen. And that wasn't even a job. That was just like, and I had no experience doing that. I just asked. My school was really big on resumes, like on just, how can we make your resume as professional as possible? What sort of activities or things have you done that people would be impressed by, even if it wasn't necessarily, I worked at this news station for 12 years. Like, even if it was just like, okay, what clubs were you in high school? And going back even further, like for me, I think I always knew I wanted to be in broadcasting without really totally realizing how I was going to do it. And I think I've talked about this before. Like, I was a huge jock growing up. I played everything and played basketball year round for 15, 16 years. I don't even know how to put it into words. It was like, just happened to be the perfect thing for me. I ended up doing broadcasting and covering sports. So like, if I wasn't playing the sport, at least I was covering the sport. The steps I was taking when I was young, I didn't even realize I was taking to get me to where I am. And maybe that's the most concise and eloquent way of saying that. I was in this thing called Odyssey of the Mind. I was in it in middle school. It was this group, we would compete nationally. You had to speak in front of people and I was doing it at a very young age. it was this club that like challenged you to think in a different way about things, come up with solutions as a team, and then present those solutions. And we went around nationally.
Especially for our younger listeners, but really everyone, I want to encourage everyone to gravitate towards activities that you love. And whether that's in sports broadcasting or in any other field, everything does not have to be going in a linear direction to progress your career. Sometimes it's just going to be an interest, and you won't even know how it's going to fit in and how it's going to help you later. Just explore it.
Absolutely.
I have 2 follow-up questions, Michelle. So if people wanted to shadow or try to, get their foot in the door, would it behoove them to either send professional emails or draft that same professional email, but in a smaller content form on social media platforms to say, hey, this is who I am. If they do or do not go to school, this is what they're interested in. Mm-hmm. And if it was possible that they could shadow any opportunity that
I had people ask all the time when I was with the Lightning, especially like local high school students that were just trying to get an idea of if they wanted to even be in this field. I think we've talked about this before, but like it's a lot of pressure to be 18 years old and all of a sudden have to say what you want to do with the rest of your life. Really don't know what you want to do unless you go and experience that. And even if you like I said, I felt like I kind of had somewhat of a path that I was taking. Even still, at the first day of freshman orientation, I was like, is this the right thing for me? Am I sure I'm doing the right thing? Because it is a lot for, an 18-year-old to make a decision about what they're going to do for the rest of their lives. Anything you can do prior to that, or even during that time, to kind of figure out, okay, is this the right thing for me? Fast forward to when I was at the Lightning, I had girls emailing me out of high school, even some college students that weren't really sure how to go the route that they wanted to go. They didn't have a reel. They weren't sure like what the next steps were. No one's really telling them what the next steps are. And that's huge. I mean, I think, I'll tell a really, really quick story just because it's amazing to me. There was a girl that shadowed me when she was in high school at the Lightning. Awesome girl, loved her. She was very young at the time. I think she was either like a junior or senior in high school. Kept in touch with me though. Ended up going to Loyola because I had said, I had really had a lot of success there. I really loved it. It was a great school for journalism, blah, blah, blah. Ends up going to Loyola. Is now a senior at Loyola, pursuing a journalism degree. Had an incredible internship with a local station in Louisiana. And then also was able to have that experience as well. Another great internship with a station in New York. So she's really done, but if she did that all on her own. I'm not taking any credit for that. But the fact that she was brave enough to reach out and experience, see what I did on a daily basis, found out she really liked it. You got to help each other out in this industry and in general. And so the fact that I think she felt like she had found something that she could do for the rest of her career, and the fact that I got to play a little part in showing her that and introducing her to Loyola. And, then like I said, I'm not taking credit. She's everything that she is because of all the steps she's taken and everything she's done. It was really fulfilling to have, to have met her. And I think, for any high school student or college student that is thinking, okay, I really want to get involved, but what are the next steps? Just reach out, just send an email, tell me or tell whoever you're interested in. I can't say that everyone will have the same reaction or response that I would, but I remember what it was like when I needed, mentors and needed people to help me see the path like I was talking about. And so, I think most people would be happy to return that favor in some capacity. And there's no age too old for having mentors. I have mentors and I'm now 30, but I've had them throughout my entire career and still very much have people that I look up to and that I try to aspire, to be like, and that I'm really impressed by how they carry themselves both on camera and off camera and just the type of people that they are. So I don't think you're ever too old to have that in life in general. And this just goes back to what you were saying earlier too, about it doesn't always have to be a sports broadcaster that's your mentor. It could just be someone that you're also just you just like how they do life. Like they do things in a way that like makes you feel excited or happy or fulfilled or whatever. And anything you can learn from those people. I mean, just rounding yourself out as a human being is equally as important.
Are there any resources like classes, podcasts, audiobooks, master classes, things that someone could take on an ad hoc basis to expand their knowledge?
Yeah, always. I mean, I'd say the easiest thing is to watch ESPN if like you're a sports person. Watch every sports thing you can get your hands on. Read everything. It's not just sports for me. Like I want to be as informed as possible, like in general, you know, like it's because all of that intersects. Like you will be like, you might be talking about sports, but it's never just sports. Like look at our country right now and all of the issues that, you know, that we're going through as a world. Sports is not just in its own corner. Sports plays a huge factor in all of this. And I think you have to know as much as you can. So as far as podcasts and things like that, like I listen to an NPR podcast every morning, and it's not anything to do with sports ever. And I listen to that every morning. And that's more just to keep me up to date with like what's going on around the world, because as much as I'd like to say, oh yeah, I can read the newspaper for 2 hours a day, I don't have that kind of time. Like, so with work and whatever, if I can throw on a podcast for 30 minutes or 45 minutes and get up to date on what I need to get up to date on, and then whatever my personal interests are, then maybe I can dive deeper into that topic. I don't think there's really like a masterclass for this. It's just like, I mean, maybe you call it journalism 101, but it's like, it's just being curious, wanting to learn about topics in the world. And I think if you're going into this field in general, you have to be a curious person because your whole job is to interview people. Just not defining yourself by or limiting yourself to one avenue and being open-minded. I think it's so important.
Or do you have any suggestions for somebody who is in one of their first interviews, or maybe they're seasoned with it, but their guest is somebody that, for a lack of a better word, is someone who starstrucks them? Mm-hmm. Is there anything professional that you've learned in your training or that you would give advice to for somebody to ground themselves and make sure that they can still get what they need, the content they need, with appreciating the amazing guests they have in front of them, but doing the job?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of those, like a lot of moments, especially because I'm like a big sports fan myself. So definitely a lot of moments where you're interviewing people who you've watched, you know, growing up, or, you know, you really respect them for whatever the reason is. I've interviewed a lot of athletes, obviously, over the years, but there's actually this one interview that always stands out to me, and it was at the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And I interviewed Andrea Kramer and Hannah Storm. Now those two they're sports reporters, but I feel like sports reporters doesn't even begin to cover. They are just pioneers for women in the field, and they are so professional and so good at their jobs. And I'm talking like the best of the best. I knew I had this interview coming up, and I was like so nervous because I felt like almost more nervous doing that interview than I felt like interviewing athletes before, because these are women that you admire so much, and like you've watched them like pave the way for you as a sports broadcaster. And I sat down for the interview, and I was floored by how nice they were and how normal they were. And I think that that's a part of it. Like that definitely took the pressure off of me to be like, you know, I wasn't as starstruck at that point because I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, duh, obviously they're normal. Like, and they're just like, they're just awesome women. They were great. Now, I have also had interviews before where like, it might be someone who, you know, I admired for whatever reason for their professional, like whatever they did in their career, and maybe they weren't as friendly as I thought they would be. And that can actually throw you a little bit when the person, you know, you're sitting down to talk to this person to get to know their story and things like that. And then they're not as like nice as you would initially want them to be. Maybe nice isn't even the right word, but just as personable or friendly towards you, because they probably do interviews all the time, you know? And I think those are the harder ones to kind of like refocus and settle in on, because it's easy to kind of get in your own head about that. But I'll tell you what I do for most of my interviews and anytime I have to do a big hit or something live that I don't have a teleprompter for, I have to have a big thing memorized or whatever it is. I really get like, and you guys, you know, maybe you have your own ways of doing this as well. And if you're athletes, you might understand this, like you get in the zone in a way. So like you lock in. Like, I don't know how to explain it. And I think reps help a lot with that, which is why, you know, it is really just so critical to get as many reps as possible. And we talked about, you know, the benefits of going to college or like, you know, having those jobs starting early on. And it's because you have to fail and you have to be bad for a while and you have to learn what bad was and then compare it to the bad that you are at the next stage, and then the less bad as you keep going, like, and then till you eventually, and you never stop growing. And I think if you did stop growing, the sport would just become, I mean, the field would just become boring for you, right? Like you want to always keep growing within the field. But I just lock in. I can't explain it. I know what I have to do, and I limit the distractions while I'm doing it. And that gets easier as you do this more and more and more and more.
With your preparation, you're prepared. So even if you're like, oh my gosh.
Yes. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah. So that's the other huge part of this, which I'm glad you brought that up, because it's important to be confident and to, you know, lock in, like I said, or, you know, but that comes from knowing that you've done the homework. Like that's part of it. So even though I was starstruck in the interview, I guess you could use the example of Hannah Storr and Andrea Kramer at first, I knew that I had done the research to ask the questions that I was going to ask. And I wasn't just being handed questions by a producer. Like I actually, and I'm really big on that. And that's one thing that you have to navigate, you know, your own journey and your own path and stuff. But I am I do the work. Like that is, no one will ever be able to say that I don't do the work. That's like, I love the research factor because I want to be as knowledgeable as I can be in that interview. Like I want to be able to understand what they're saying and their perspective because I've read it and I've watched it or whatever, I've covered it. So that you have to do your homework. I mean, I think in this field, it's just so critical, especially in sports. Like, I mean, in every facet of broadcasting, but sports when you're dealing with X's and O's and you gotta know what you're talking about. It's just critical.
Glad that we went through kind of your preparation and how you center yourself for right before a broadcast. Is there anything that you do on a daily or weekly basis to take care of your mental health and to center yourself? Maybe do you meditate? Do you have mantras? Do you use music? Could you share with us how you take care of your mental health?
I exercise a lot. That's like a huge thing for me. I'm, you know, I'd like to say that that I was better at meditating or doing yoga. And it's like on my, you know, that list of things that you're like, I gotta go meditate and like, I gotta do yoga, but I never do it. If I'm in a studio or if I'm, you know, at a desk all day, whatever it is, if I can get away either in the morning to start the day, or if I can go home and knock out something or go to the gym and knock out something, I feel more accomplished. Just in general, when you take care of things, you know, when you have things piling up and you take care of them, I feel like that helps me with helps me just to be like more zen in general. Right. So I try to be like on Sundays, for example, I try to start the week the right way with whether I've gone to the grocery store, I have things that I need to make me a successful person, you know, that week and to make me a better version of myself. So just to plan for when this week can I work out? When do I have free time? What can I cook this week? What can I start today so that it's easier this week? So I'm not running behind and eating something that I probably don't want to eat.
Or at least what I always say in acting, it's being disciplined in your life so then you can be wildly free in your art. Because if you have everything, you're structured in your real life, then you can be free in your work because all your T's are crossed and all your I's are dotted. Yeah. And it makes you just feel good.
I totally agree with that. Like, and it's easier said than done. Like there's definitely weeks where I'm way behind. And like I do this daily show for, that's been following the NHL playoffs right now. And it's every morning we tape it in the mornings. And so that I used to do shows at night. So like my whole routine like flip-flopped. And at first I found it like, that was like hard for me because I'm used to like getting a great work, like first thing in the morning, I'm up, I have my coffee, I go to the gym. And then I'm like, that is such a good way for me to start the day. So I had to kind of adjust and figure out, you know, how I'm gonna, because in the middle of the day, like I'm kind of tired. I'm like, do I really want to go to the gym right now? Do I want to go do this? And I start making excuses. And it's like, you really have to train yourself to just be disciplined, as you mentioned, Isabella. And that I feel like helps you just in other aspects of your life as well. I also do try to, just enjoy the moment a little bit, you know, like that helps. That's huge for your mental health, because you put in all this work and all this preparation, and, you know, you're trying to just come across as like, you know, you want to make sure that everyone knows that you know what you're talking about and all of that. But like, then there is an aspect of like, you just have to have fun with it. And that is great for your mental health. When you walk away from a show and think, wow, like not only did we nail that show, but like we had fun. Like that's really big as well for me. So like, I know, for example, this week I have a soccer game on Wednesday and I have a soccer game on Saturday. I also have 5 hockey broadcasts Monday through Friday. So that's fine. It's recognizing, okay, this is what's like what you have coming up. What steps can I take on this like quote unquote day off to be ready for tomorrow? This becomes second nature too. Like when you get used to kind of living this way, and you guys can probably, the same thing for your fields as well. When you get kind of used to being, on top of it a little bit, like you want to be, because it makes you feel better. And it makes you feel more secure in what you're saying, and you feel confident because you know you've done the research. Also, you know what's really big too, and I'm not great about this, and I need to I can say it and I need to be better. But also giving yourself a break, you know, like even with the gym and stuff, like because I've tied it so much to my mental health, that if I don't go, oftentimes I feel like I failed at something that I wanted to do for myself. It's switching your brain to sometimes recognize, okay, what I really need today for my mental health is maybe to just take a walk outside, or just to maybe sit on my couch, or to rest, or whatever it is. It's learning. I think that it's not one set thing per se. I think it's just a lot of different things that you have to be willing to be kind to yourself. And I think that's huge for your mental health. So like just recognizing one day, okay, today I'm just going to take this day.
Well, giving yourself permission.
Yeah.
It has to be that permission to find, okay, either way, I know it's going to be a lot, but what's going to make my soul sing, or what's going to make my heart smile? Michelle, when it comes to, you know, the preparation, how do you know what to do outfit wise and accessory wise to best highlight you and what you have to offer on each live hit?
I don't think about it enough is the short answer for that. But no, as we talked about earlier, like I grew up around sports and always have just been a very sporty person in general. So comfort for me is like hugely important. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten more confident and comfortable, like going with that, you know. I think that's a great question, because it does matter, you know, it does kind of depend what you're covering. For example, covering hockey, we get very dressed up in hockey, which is crazy because it's so cold too on the ice, but we're wearing these dresses and I'm like, why am I wearing this dress today? But you get very dressed up for that. Men usually wear like a suit jacket, or at least just like a nice, you know, collared shirt with dress pants. If you're like covering football, for example, on the sidelines, like I would never wear that kind of outfit for a football game. I would wear probably jeans and boots and maybe a nice blazer or something like that. Soccer is kind of similar to that as well, because it's like outdoors and you want to be more comfortable. You're kind of, with football, like you will actually, when I covered football, I would not run, but I'd be walking up and down the field watching the plays happen. If I'm in a studio though, for example, doing a pregame show or something, I might wear like a nice dress with heels and like have that be like more tailored. But that goes to what, you know, you're saying too about being prepared. That's one of those little things that you often don't think, maybe some people, and I shouldn't speak for everyone, because I do think that it is important to think about what you're going to wear and how you're going to look, and, you know, the whole overall aesthetic. But I think if you can kind of like look in your closet and say, okay, I've got these 3 tops that I can wear, you know, these 3 days, that is like does take away some of the stress of getting ready in the morning. Like, at least for me, like I don't have hair and makeup in my house. So I'm getting ready to shoot these shows in the morning, and I have to add an hour to do my hair and my makeup. And so that takes away from my prep time. And like, I like to be prepared. Like I said, I like to be prepared in the morning. So like, I get up a whole hour earlier just to make sure that I still have that hour to prepare. One thing with accessories is you often wear a microphone. So if the necklace is too big or if it moves around too much, it distracts and you can hear it. So that's something to consider that like I didn't even know until I really got into the industry.
Is that something that when you walk into each role, they let you know, or is it something that they feel confident that in your job title, you know already what's kosher per se?
I think if they don't say anything, it's a good thing. If they have to tell you that, hey, you know, maybe wear something XYZ, whatever. Now, at the same time, this is a very delicate, because like, you know, no one should be telling you what you can and can't wear, but places do have expectations for how you should dress. And I would consider business casual or whatever, you know, your workplace is. That being said, I think the only time I have ever had anyone ever say anything to me, and it was a great lesson, honestly. I was in college, I was working for a TV station as my internship. And I used to wear these, like, I was a college kid. So think about how you dress when you're in college, right? Like I think bandeaus were really popular then. So like the bandeaus with like the low tank tops, you know? And I would wear those to work, like not even thinking, because I would come from class and I never thought, like, this is important actually. I never thought they saw me. I don't want to say like I wasn't an employee like I was, but I was so low on the totem pole that I didn't think it really mattered. I didn't think anyone was really paying attention. And it just goes to show you that everyone is always watching. And a woman approached me who is a producer on one of the shows. And she said, Michelle, and she said it in the best way too. And I was wearing, I remember that day, I loved this shirt too. It was this like tank top that came low on the sides. And I think I was wearing it with like jeans, but you could see like the bandeau, you know, through it. And she said, Michelle, you know, don't you like when you see so-and-so go out and get to hold the microphone sometimes when the reporter can't do it? Like, isn't that like a really cool thing? Would you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, I would love to do that. And she's like, okay, like, you know, you have to dress like a little bit more professionally if you want to do that, because we can't have you like going out holding our station's microphone if like you don't have, you know, if you're not wearing the right thing. And so that was a really subtle way of being like, you're not wearing the right thing, but saying it in a way that I didn't feel like, oh my gosh, like she thinks of me a certain way, or like I'm, you know, I did the wrong thing. Like it was a really good way to show me, okay, even though you don't think that like you're being noticed here and you think you're just a college kid or whatever, like people are still recognizing you and noticing you, and you need to, you know, dress as part of like the business casual and all of that. And that happened. And I honestly thought it was a really great lesson to have so young.
Tacking on to this, would it be who of them? I'm only grabbing from my own experience. In college, I used to pack a small little suitcase, and I would, because I had 3 different jobs and I would go to school. So in my suitcase, I would have my heels and my business outfit and just everything laid out, because I had no time to run home from, you know, like a 4 a.m. hit with the lightning and then to classes and then maybe a workout and then to a game. So I'd have my outfits in a suitcase. Is that also kosher in the broadcasting world? Do people carry small little suitcases with everything they may possibly need?
Yeah, I mean, I bring a bag to, like, if I go to the studio. So I won't, because like I said, I'm big on the comfort thing. And I live in New York City. So realistically, I'm sprinting to get on a subway and trying to make it in time and hoping that all my trains line up at the same time. And you're walking often a few blocks to get to where you want to get to. So it's like, I usually wear, like, I'll bring my dress in like, you know, a little plastic bag or whatever it is, you know, and I'll have a little, like a tote that has curling iron. I will probably have already done my makeup, but just to touch up my makeup, I'll never ever have heels on, and I'll have them in a bag, and then usually just wear flats. And then once I get in and I get situated and stuff, usually we will do the production meeting and I'll be wearing still my sweats or whatever I was wearing to get in. And then I'll kind of refocus, put my dress on, make sure but once again, I always make sure like I give myself time to do that without feeling the stress or pressure of like, oh my gosh, no, I only have 5 minutes till we have to be on air and I'm not ready. I'm not rehearsed. I'm not whatever. Dressing, it's always better to dress up than it is to dress down. So always dress more, maybe even a little bit more professionally than you would in general, because you just don't know. And then you feel it out from there. One thing that's like an unwritten rule in a sense is that certain types of things they don't come across on camera as well as like a solid. So I have a lot of solids in my closet because solid colors come across better on air. Busy things look busy.
So are there any misconceptions that you would like to clear up or address today that you have encountered throughout your career?
Honestly, not to just keep saying the same thing over and over again, because I feel like we've touched on that. Just that it's not like an easy road necessarily. You don't just, I mean, maybe you do, maybe some people do just graduate, but I think the ones that actually have to go and kind of cut their teeth, we call it, you end up better for it in the end because you have to be bad and you have to let yourself be bad. You have to be kind to yourself when you are struggling, when things don't come as naturally or as quickly as you hope they would. And I think a misconception, like I've said, is that it's this glamorous job and career that you walk out of college and you're like almost essentially like you're on a runway and it's like you're, all eyes are on you. And it's actually the complete opposite. Your job is to be a conduit of information, like you're the one that's asking the questions. You want the person that you're talking to be the one that's shining. You want the story that you're telling to shine. You're an important role in that story, of course, but it's your job to tell it. You really have to do your homework in this field. And there's such a difference between like, I watch sports and like, I like live and breathe and consume sports and really like, consistently try to learn more and more and more. And I'm not just watching a basketball game. I'm learning the stories of the players that are playing the game. I know why the coach coaches this certain style, why he fits this team, who their star players are, where their star players went to school, what was their life like growing up. That comes with it as you grow in this industry a little bit more.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. As we are kind of bringing this to a close, are there 5 key things that you want our listeners to take away from this conversation if they want to follow up in your footsteps and go into sports broadcasting?
I would say starting early in, when you're in school, or even before you're getting to a college or deciding if journalism is what you want to do, reaching out to people local news people, sending emails, message them on Twitter, see if you can shadow, see if you can pick their brain a little bit about their path when you're trying to kind of figure out your own. I'd say that's one. Another takeaway is don't be afraid to start small, starting in a small market, what I just talked about, allowing yourself to grow and allowing yourself to get better. Have a really good support system that, I would say have mentors in the industry. Have people that you can trust, along the lines of when you do make that first initial step of reaching out, finding people that you can have a relationship with, that you can pick their brain, and grow, through whatever it is that they're explaining to you or however they can help you along the way. Number 4, takeaways, do your homework. Make sure that, as you would approach any test or subject or anything that you need to know your material for, that's how you approach your work as well. And that the more you know, the better you can do your job. And as we talked about earlier, just the way it kind of just makes everything else fall into place when you're prepared. It makes a huge difference. You're a more confident person. You're a more comfortable person. Your personality shows a little bit more because you know what you're talking about. You can have a little fun. You can kind of let your guard down a little bit. So all of that translates well when you're able to kind of put the work in before. And the last thing, the 5th thing, and the most important thing is be kind to yourself. And this is a journey, and it is a competition with only yourself. A really good friend of mine who I worked with in the past said to me, and it's a kind of cheesy thing, but it's literally, I don't know what it is about it that's stuck with me for my whole life. It's sunflowers, don't worry about the flowers next to them. They just bloom, right? And so I think in our field, it's very easy, and in general, in life, it's very easy to compare yourself to where someone else is. It's very easy to get down on yourself and feel like, you're not as far as you should be, or you're not where you're supposed to be. There is a plan for you. I think in the meantime, enjoy the process and enjoy where you are and be kind, because you know what, we're all in this journey. And like I said, it is at the end of the day, it is a competition with only yourself. It's not a competition with anyone else. So allow yourself to grow and become who you want to be. And in the meantime, in when it doesn't seem to be happening as quickly as possible, try to embrace that time and appreciate how far you've come and where you are.
Michelle, thank you for bringing us through. Thank you for teaching us through your experience and always being open and honest in your work. And, not only teaching Alex and I, but we hope that this inspires others who are interested in getting in the same field as you to know that, they have a shot. This is how they can prepare themselves. And anything is really possible with the right amount of work and dedication. So thank you for joining us on Upswing.
Absolutely. Thank you. I learned a lot from you guys as well. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Michelle.